Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Center for Survivor Agency and Justice. This is our expert advisor spotlight on Karen Tjapkes. CSAJ strives to develop and promote transformative advocacy that removes systemic barriers, enhances organizational responses, and improves professional practices to meet the self-defined needs of domestic and sexual violence survivors. This work really centers on the intersection of poverty and domestic violence. And so multiple partnerships with expertise in diverse issue areas are essential to enhancing economic security for survivors. And CSAJ is thrilled and honored to have such a coalition at our back, informing and in guiding our work. And so today we welcome and are honored by Karen, who she's about to share a little bit about who she is, her work in partnership with us at CSAJ, as well as offer some bigger picture reflections on where we as a movement are in addressing the intersection of poverty and domestic violence and where we're going. So thanks again, Karen, for joining us, and take it away.
Thank you. As Sarah said, I'm Karen Tjapkes. I am a supervising attorney with Legal Aid of Western Michigan. I've been at Legal Aid for 16 years now, so I've been here a while. Kind of going backwards, the way I became interested in this work regarding domestic violence was when I was an undergraduate, when I was at Michigan State University. My major was basically social policy, and a lot of the coursework and research I was doing had to do with social policy related to families and children. So this was in the mid-90s when we were in the middle of welfare reform, and all those issues were in the spotlight. And one thing I kept going back to in the coursework and in the research was issues about violence towards children and violence towards women, and how the aftermath of that violence affected our social policy and the resources for those families. So for example, one semester I spent volunteering at the domestic violence shelter that was actually on Michigan State's campus. So going into law school, I had had all of this coursework and experiences related to family violence. And that really kind of guided what I did in law school, and then what I was choosing in terms of my career moving forward, wanting to work at Legal Aid and do public interest law. So when I started here at Legal Aid, I started in a really rural office where I was a generalist. So I did a little bit of everything. I did family law and custody with survivors of domestic violence, housing, consumer, kind of a little bit of everything. As my tenure at Legal Aid has progressed, I began more and more to focus actually on the housing and consumer law aspects. That was just kind of, I developed an interest over there, and so I started to focus more there. But one thing I actually didn't miss was watching someone who was leaving a violent relationship transform her life, be able to take those steps to become safe, to reestablish her household, and to establish her independence and sort of transform and move on. So that was something I missed, and it didn't quite get the same thing in my other work. But moving on, in about 2008, there was a mortgage litigation conference in Ohio. And the Center for Survivor Advocacy and Justice, CSAJ, and the National Consumer Law Center, NCLC, were looking for some attorneys to talk on a panel about the intersection of domestic violence and consumer law. And I was asked to be on that panel back then. And that's when my relationship and my work with CSAJ began. And so I've been pleased to work with them for 8 years now, helping with all sorts of different things, with webinars, with conferences, primarily on mortgage lending and other consumer law topics for domestic violence advocates and attorneys and survivors. One thing I've really appreciated with my work with CSAJ, and I think has really helped my practice and I think other people's practice, is to look for the connections across these areas, because so often we see our clients and their legal issues in silos. So this is a custody client in this silo, and this is a housing client in this silo, and we don't often look at how those legal problems interface or go across all those different areas. And so this has really challenged me to think across those silos and to think across those connections. So how does that divorce case interact with the foreclosure case, and what can we do in both places to better work with and represent this survivor? And so I think that has been such a tremendous effect and experience on my personal practice, and I hope that that is something that others can also get from CSAJ. So moving forward, fundamentally economic justice means to me is just fairness in the consumer marketplace, and that we have equal access to credit and equal protection of those consumer and housing laws. And so especially for domestic violence survivors, that they also have those equal rights and are able to enforce their rights regardless of their past or their experiences with the domestic violence. And I think we've done some great things since we've really started to focus our energies on this work. For example, with the CFPB recently released a new set of mortgage regulations that will go into effect in about a year and a half that really address the issues of divorce and mortgages and how a mortgage company has to work with somebody going through a divorce, and or the housing provisions of VAWA. How those have changed and expanded the rights of survivors over the past several years. At the same time, I think we have a lot of work to do. We still don't have regulations in some other areas that really address the unique needs of domestic violence survivors and what needs to happen in order for them to have a fair and equal access to consumer marketplace. And so I think we still have a lot of work to do. And I'm really excited to continue to work with CSAJ to continue to enhance outcomes for those clients. So thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. This is why we love Karen. She's a wonderful human and fierce advocate. And you really not only bring an understanding of, the nitty-gritty of mortgage and foreclosure litigation and specifically how it can benefit survivors, but it brings such an open creativity to partnership building, which is really central. And we gain so much from our partnership with you. And for everyone tuning in, you can find all of Karen Tjapkes' trainings, materials, webinars on our website at csaj.org. She's also going to be the author of not one, but 2 chapters in our soon-to-be-released Consumer and Economic Guidebook for survivors on bankruptcy and foreclosure. And we hope that you will check all of those things out and integrate some of her gems and wisdom into your own practice. So thanks again, Karen, for everything for being here and for being spotlighted with us today.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you later.
All right.